Council is in session. Please be seated. Good morning, everyone. This meeting of Ajax Council is being held in a hybrid meeting format with virtual and in-person participation by members of the public, staff, and council. This meeting is also being live streamed and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants, please use your microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. To those making submissions as part of a public meeting, please ensure you sign in using the sheet available at the accessible lectern to preserve rights available to you under the Planning Act or other applicable legislation. I'll now call this meeting to order. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land in which we gather is situated within the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas, more specifically the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action and acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest on items on the agenda today? I'm going to start with my opening comments. I want to thank everybody for being here today to discuss this critical budget, and I want to express my sincere gratitude to the town senior management and to the finance team for their guidance and support to prepare this strong mayor's budget. Thank you so much. To Acting Director Mepham, you will walk us through the capital and operating budget shortly, but I'd first like to say a few words about how we came to this budget target, this budget number. Residents have been clear, and I know you're feeling the pain of increasing costs during this affordability crisis, and your passion and concern were top of mind in building this budget. I looked closely at the town's needs versus the wants. I personally went and looked at nearly every road, trail, and park in the capital budget. I examined service levels and considered the largest and the smallest items like flag raisings to the Ajax Community Center renovation and everything in between. Sat with the fleet manager, went over every single vehicle, and any changes I wanted to make, discussed with department heads on what the impacts would be to make sure we weren't making changes to something we had already started in the past. I'm very proud that we've been able to keep the increase below the cost of inflation. But let me be clear, we've done a lot of work and a lot of investment as a council to get us on the solid ground that we stand on today. And since becoming mayor in 2018, my focus has been on rebuilding. The decades of low investment into town infrastructure, services, and workforce were not sustainable. And during the 2018 and 2022 term, we looked at what we needed to do to succeed, and that included the update of every major plan pretty much that we have, including the Parks and Recreation Master Plan, the Fire Master Plan, the IT strategy, the core service reviews, customer service strategy, HR strategy, and several others. And we began looking at new non-tax revenues as well, such as grants. We hired a dedicated grant writer. To date, we've received $60 million in funding since 2018, since adding this position. We started new user fees. We started using MPI instead of CPI, and we've brought in $4 million in new user fees since 2019. We've made changes and brought in an investment policy with annual returns as high as almost 20% this year. We began the 2022 to 2026 term with significant investment. We hired new firefighters, we invested in technology, and we put significant funds into our aging municipal infrastructure. With loss of income to our capital reserves, like development charge deferrals, reductions in slot revenues, and loss of dividend and interest income from our ownership in Alexicon, Council made the difficult choice to initiate an annual 2% levy for 4 years to top up our capital reserves. We've made significant progress, and this is the final year of this commitment. Now's not the time to let up, and I've reduced in other areas so we may complete that commitment. We've done the hard work, and now this 2026 budget can focus on maintaining service levels and existing infrastructure. Like our residents, the town is also facing pressure from rising costs from vehicles to equipment to asphalt to the cost of technology. And the cost of doing business and maintaining the town has climbed significantly. The town needs to improve cash flows, and one important change we made during my time as mayor has been the update of our investment policy. Since the change in strategy, the town has accumulated $12 million in interest between 2022 and 2024, which has been used to reduce the budget. We've also reinvested $18 million into long-term equity investment to take the financial burden off our future taxpayers. The cost of this year's capital budget sits at $45.1 million, and only $8.95 million is funded through the general levy and stormwater fees. The vast majority of the capital budget is being put towards our road network, including the Harwood North widening and the Roslyn Road reconstruction. There are 67 capital budgets There are 67 capital budget projects funded this year, down from 118 in 2025. In order to keep cost pressures down for our taxpayers, I removed 44 projects, like a building automation system rehab and acoustic barrier replacement project. I deferred 32 projects, including a fire station renovation and some street lighting improvements in the Midtown, and cash flowed the ACC renovation detailed design, splitting the cost between 2026 and 2027. This is in addition to savings found in other projects. While reviewing the operating budget, which is what it costs to run the town, we looked at where we can reduce costs without impacting our core levels of service. We were able to eliminate $961,000 by reducing the printing and delivery of council newsletters. These will continue to be available online. Eliminating a recommended new staff position in the planning department. Using the municipal accommodation tax, which is the tax that visitors pay to stay in hotels and Airbnbs in our community, to offset one-time costs, as well as removing various contracted services, administration expenses, communication and technology costs, materials and supplies costs. I want to leave the town in a better position than when I found it, while also ensuring that we remain a community where people are proud to live, and I hope you will see the care and respect we've taken to lower the tax impact, while maintaining our infrastructure and delivering excellent programs and services. That concludes my remarks. I'm going to now thank you again for being here today, and I'm going to turn it back over to staff to take us through the numbers. Ms. Mepham, please go ahead.
Good morning, Mayor Collier, Council, and members of the public attending in person and listening at home. I'm Julie Mepham, Acting Director of Finance for the Town of Ajax. I'll be presenting an overview of the 2026 budget, highlighting our budget framework, priority projects, and impact on the tax bill. To begin, the town is required by provincial law to maintain a balanced budget. This means we must either increase revenues through fees or property taxes or decrease expenditures by reducing service levels. The town's approach is to balance fiscal responsibility with maintaining high-quality services for our community. The budget process begins in spring and is guided by factors such as economic indicators, legislative requirements, inflation, master plans and strategies, and many other factors listed on this slide. It is also informed by trends captured in our operating budget forecasts prepared over the summer months and public input received over the course of the year. Capital projects budgeted are based on needs, safety considerations, and available funding. The operating budget covers the day-to-day expenses to run the town, such as road and sidewalk maintenance, recreation, parks, emergency services, IT, library services, and bylaw enforcement. Operating budget expenses are similar to managing your daily household costs, such as food, gas, and insurance. The capital budget funds one-time projects such as roads, bridges, parks, buildings, vehicles, and IT infrastructure. It includes both the maintenance of existing assets and construction of new ones. For a general household, this is similar to renovating portions of your house or replacing shingles on your roof. The 2026 capital budget is approximately $45.1 million and is primarily directed to roads, town buildings, and vehicles. The focus of the 2026 budget is on capital projects supporting the growth of the town. Major investments include $32 million in roads, including the widening of Harwood Avenue and Roslyn Road, as well as the annual road resurfacing program. The $4.6 million investment in buildings includes the design of the Ajax Community Center rehabilitation and Pickering Village redevelopment work. Additional details for each project are included in the capital budget document, which is posted on the town's website. The capital program is funded from various capital reserves. The town follows a financial sustainability plan where 90% of the revenues going into the reserves are utilized for the capital budget, and 10% is directed to the reserves to help build them over time. This 10% is also used in year for emergency repairs and unplanned projects. The primary funding sources for 2026 capital projects include development charges, town reserves, and the Canada Community Building Fund. Recent changes in provincial laws mean that the town now collects some development charges later than before. And certain developments are exempt from these charges. This has affected how much DC revenue the town receives from new developments. Slower development activity is also impacting the collection of these charges. As you can see on the graph in front of you, the 2024 and the 2025 collections have been significantly lower than what's been collected in the past. For 2026, only the most important development charge funded projects were brought forward, while others have been postponed to future years. The town currently has enough DC reserve funds to complete the capital project work included in the 2026 budget. However, I would like to note that the town currently anticipates requiring debenture funding to pay for the DC-funded portions of the Roslyn Road and Harwood Avenue widening projects in 2027 and 2028. This will not affect the ability to award these projects in 2026. It is important for council and residents to know that the carrying costs of these DC debentures will be paid by future DC revenue, not by the taxpayer. These costs do not become part of the general levy. If we have to cash flow the carrying costs of DC debt due to not having collected enough funds, DC reserves would pay back the cash plus interest. DC projects to be included in the budget are reviewed annually, and the timing of projects that have not yet begun can be shifted out. It is also to be noted that the town-funded portions of these two projects, so 22% of the Roslyn Road project and the 5% for Harwood Avenue widenings, is fully funded by town reserves and the Canada Community Building Fund. In May of 2025, Council approved an asset management plan, as well as a level of service guiding the maintenance and rehabilitation timelines of the town's $2.7 billion in assets. This plan provided the town an understanding of the asset management funding gap, which is the difference between the red line and the dotted line you see on that graph. The blue dotted line shows how much it will cost to maintain assets on average over the next 10 years, and the red line is the budgeted funding going into our capital reserves. Even after council reduced the frequency of rehabilitation and reconstruction activities on our roads to save taxpayers' money, there is a funding shortfall of $5.5 million per year, or $55 million over the next 10 years to pay for the work required on our assets. The infrastructure levy introduced in 2023 has helped reduce this funding gap, but existing revenue sources are not sufficient to fully fund our asset management needs. While the town is strategically allocating long-term investment revenues into capital reserves to help close that gap, continuing to build sustainable funding sources from the tax base is essential to ensure we have the funding required to address our infrastructure needs. Since 2025, the town has benefited from non-tax revenue from Casino Ajax and Alexicon. These were used to help fund major projects and keep property taxes lower. In 2019, these non-tax sources made up 64% of the base funding for our capital program, whereas in 2026, only 19% of budgeted capital reserve funding comes from non-tax sources. As shown on the chart on the right, the town has lost $22 million in cumulative non-tax revenues for capital reserves from decreasing external revenues. Through the infrastructure levy, $17 million of that gap has been filled, but there is still a $5 million gap compared to the amount we were contributing to our capital program in 2019. The 2% investment in infrastructure is an increase of $43 for the average assessed house in 2026. In addition to working on closing the infrastructure gap, inflation and rising costs for assets continue to be a challenge to our budget. For example, the cost of a fire pumper is up 72% since 2019, a snowplow 65%. Council has taken steps to address the town's capital funding needs. Approving asset management service levels allow the town to identify its infrastructure gap and take appropriate step towards funding it, one of those tools being the infrastructure levy. Council has also identified buildings with no or low usage that can be sold, and recently, one of those buildings, the Sundial Pavilion, has been sold. This helps with managing both operating and capital maintenance costs in the long run. New revenue sources have been established, such as the municipal accommodation tax that can be used for both operating and capital budget. The allocation of equity investment income to capital reserves, once returns are known at year-end, helps keep the tax rate lower in the long run by requiring less tax-based contributions. Municipalities are service-driven organizations, and in 2026, not unlike any other year, the majority of our annual budget impact comes from labor, as well as the direct and indirect costs to support the various programs and services offered. In addition to labor agreements, the final phase-in of a 3-year plan to phase in the exempt compensation review completed in 2023 was an impact in this year's budget. We also had the annualization of previously approved new positions, continued investment in IT and process modernization, and some of those costs are increasing as licenses are more expensive. We also had the continuing commitment to the infrastructure levy of 2%. In April 2025, the town introduced a 5% municipal accommodation tax paid by those staying in Ajax hotels and short-term rentals. The town is forecasting to generate $576,000 in revenue that can come back to the town. A portion of this revenue has been used in the 2026 budget. This slide details some of the key adjustments made to reduce the tax rate in 2026. These include increase in user fees and volume increases of just over $1 million, increase in penalties and interest revenue on taxes, on overdue taxes by $1 million, reduction of $961,000 by the mayor, including the use of the municipal accommodation tax, increase in interest income being allocated to the operating budget, the removal of one staff recommended position, and various other costs. We also are including a business case for 1 seasonal worker and 2 conversions to support fairground operations with minimal tax rate impact. This slide shows the operating expenditures by spending category, with the bulk continuing to be wages and benefits. The allocations on this slide have not changed significantly from what was presented in prior budgets. This slide also shows the operating revenue by source. Again, the percentages splits has not changed a lot from prior years. The total operating budget increase before business cases and infrastructure levy is 2.74%, or a 0.9% increase on the tax bill. much lower than the cost of inflation required to operate the town on a day-to-day basis. With the new fairground staff and capital levy, the proposed 2026 tax rate increase is 4.9%, or an increase of 1.61 on the total tax bill. This slide shows the blended tax rate, which is based on an assumption for the region of Durham tax increase at 6.5. I understand that there are some proposed amendments that will make that number a bit lower, but that will be finalized on Thursday at the regional meetings. So this slide shows a summary of the tax impact for an average assessed home of $495,200. For the town of Ajax, for a home in the town of Ajax assessed at that value, the annual change of 4.9% means $106.25 impact on an annual basis and a monthly increase of $885. And this last slide here is showing the varying changes based on the current assessment value of homes across the town. Thank you for your attention, and I'll be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time.
Thank you, Ms. Mapp. I'm not seeing any names in the list right now. I just have a quick question. One of the things you said about the sale of underutilized assets like the Sundap Pavilion being used to lower capital and operating expenses. I thought we were putting that money into a reserve to use for other acquisitions or things should we need to at a later date. Is that not the case?
Through the mayor, yes. The funds from the sale is going to the reserves, but by reducing the operating costs in our operating budget, we are reducing some of those maintenance costs on an ongoing basis.
And just to clarify, thank you, I just wanted that clarification. Just for the public, these buildings require, some of them, significant investment. I think the Hartrick House, one of the buildings we had, was $200,000 for roof repairs, air conditioning, some other things that were needed. It's not, while it's conditionally sold, that were needed that now we don't have to pay to do going forward. So, okay, not only we're not collecting revenue, but we are also losing or having to spend money for maintenance and upkeep. Questions? You did an extremely thorough job. Thank you. Oops, sorry. So I'm just, before I forget, I have a pecuniary interest that I had completely forgotten about until I looked through the resolutions and saw there was one separating out the aquatics portion of our, and I absolutely completely forgot that my son worked for the town of Ajax as a lifeguard. I thought he wasn't here anymore, but apparently he still is part-time while he's at university. So I will make that declaration, and I would abstain from voting on the part-time aquatics wages and benefits portion of the budget. To the clerk, we've done the opening, we've done the capital budget operating presentation. Are we at public comments and questions? Okay, thank you. This is a public comment and questions portion. If any member of the public wishes to come forward, make a delegation on the budget, please come forward, state your name, sign in, and you'll have 5 minutes.
Good morning, members of council and staff, and thank you for your work on this budget. I know it wasn't easy given the challenges ahead and the retirement of the finance director in the middle of the budget cycle. I've spoken to this council repeatedly on one consistent theme: sustainable spending, transparent budgeting, and fair taxation. Today, I want to focus on 2 specific issues I raised directly with you via email: capital budget transparency and operating budget accuracy, because both drive property taxes today and tomorrow. First, the capital budget. The Roslyn Road and Harwood Road widening sheets on page 321 and 322 show no use of debt, giving the clear impression that the projects are funded by development revenue. But when you turn to the development charge schedule on page 528, the math tells a different story. By the end of 2026, DC reserves are effectively drawn down, and the schedule shows $30 million in potential debt in 2027, $18 million in potential debt in 2028. That's almost $49 million in potential debt, and it appears nowhere on the debenture summary on page 523 or the project sheets as I mentioned. This is not responsible funding disclosure, regardless of the comments earlier. Debt today becomes operating costs tomorrow, and operating costs becomes taxes year after year. Mayor, you said this yourself at last week's Live with the Mayor event. Ajax has avoided a permanent 1% debt levy and other municipalities that are now trapped in. Approving capital plans that are debt-driven risks putting Ajax on the same path. Based on the town's own numbers and your presentation, DCs have slowed and are unlikely to recover due to provincial deferrals. Now on to the operating budget and the 2026 property tax rate. Ajax has a pattern of understating investment revenue, setting the tax levy much higher than necessary, and then reporting large surpluses at the end of the year that are swept into reserves. Residents pay higher taxes up front, reserves benefit later. In 2024 alone, investment revenue was budgeted at $8.7 million, and the actual exceeded $25 million. And this is not just me saying it. At the April 2025 General Government Meeting on the 2024 Annual Investment Report, Mayor, you flagged this as a fairly significant difference and asked why the number shows up in the operating surplus summary. Staff clarified that the investment revenue must be recorded first and then transferred out, which is why it appears there. Finance staff also confirmed these are realized amounts of interest income, dividends, and distributions with no unrealized gains recorded. So yes, it was transferred, but this is the point. Ajax is investing its $230 million portfolio for growth, but budgeting and communicating like it holds cash. At the November 2025 General Government Meeting, both the Mayor and Director of Finance stated it is misleading to assess cost without recognizing offsetting revenue. That principle must apply consistently. If revenues matter when explaining spending, they must also matter when determining how much tax to collect. Yet in the 2026 operating budget, investment income is budgeted at just $5.8 million, and this is not simply lower casino or lexicon revenue as been consistently led to believe. I'm not suggesting Ajax budget $25 million. I'm asking to stop pretending predictable revenue does not exist. As an accountant, Mr. Mayor, I think you know what I mean. Even a modest $10 million is reforecast is conservative and responsible. As I spelled out clearly in my email to council, that would generate $4.2 million in additional recognized revenue versus the 2026 assumption. Allocated prudently, 90% to reserves and 10% to levy relief, that translates into roughly a 0.4 direct property tax savings for residents without cutting services and while strengthening reserves. In conclusion, Council, these two issues are connected. Transparency now prevents tax pressure later. Restraint now avoids crisis later. Final approval is December 22nd, so you have time to correct the disclosures and assumptions made. My detailed emails provide all the context you require. I thank you. This is all I wanted to say on the public record. Good luck with the rest of the meeting and the budget. Thanks.
I do have a question for you, Mr. Glass. Mr. Glass? Mr. Glass? Fair enough. Does any other member of the public wish to come forward and speak on the budget process?
That's better. First of all, I want to apologize for scooting out earlier. I wanted to go over to the encampment that is currently being taken apart and see how things were going over there. So my apologies. Good morning. I only had two questions, but after listening to your introduction, Mayor, now I have 3, because good for us that we got $60 million in grant money. Is there a list, an itemized list of where that $60 million has been spent? And if there is, I'd like maybe it to go to one of my councillor representative, Lisa Bauer, and I can talk to her at the coffee and chat next day. Secondly, easy question, what is the current balance of the Housing Accelerator Fund? And is there anything in this budget where it is being directed? Those 2 questions, that's it, that's all. Thanks.
Ms. Hollis, you said you had 3 questions.
That was it. The 60 million, where's the list? And the other 2, how much and where's it going?
I'm not sure who would be able to answer the the grant list. I'm sure we have one. Ms. McClarty, speak to that?
Through the chair, yes, I can supply that to Councillor Bauer.
Okay.
Thanks,
Send
Christy.
it to all council, please. And Director Mepham, the half fund balance, do you have that handy?
I do not have that balance at the moment, but we can definitely provide it.
Okay, thank you. We will get those to you.
Good. Any indication in this budget where you're going to spend it? Like is there anything in the budget that says, oh, we'll go to the Housing Accelerator Fund?
I'm pretty sure there probably is, but I cannot remember off the top of my head. Any of the directors, Director McClarty, do you know, or Director Mepham?
Through the chair, there's one identified project, and that is the ACC design, and I believe that's being cash flowed over the 2 years, 26 and 27, 1.5 and 1.5.
Right.
Thank you. I knew about that one. All right. Thanks very much for your time. Now I'm off to my Pilates class.
Okay. Have fun. Does any other member of the public wish to come forward and speak on this budget? Please sign in.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Mayor Collier and members of local and regional council for putting forward the 2026 capital operating budget. But can the taxpayers continue to bear the burden and the sacrifice of higher taxes from Ajax and the region? As homeowners, we are struggling to make ends meet due to high inflation. We're not against future capital spending for development, but like the problem of homelessness, mental health crisis, and affordability housing in Ajax, we're never designed to carry federal and provincial responsibility, but that's exactly what's happening. The present burden to fix this problem is now. We need a secondary plan, Mr. Mayor and Council. I'm asking for your support and fairness for the people of Ajax that are struggling financially to pay their tax bill. We are one tax bill away from being in arrears. At times we cannot afford food on the table, but to go to the food bank. Our tax bill has gone up. Some of us are paying between $600 to $900 plus a month in property tax. Our income is being slashed by a third of our salary going in property tax. Many have lost their jobs, some at a factory, as you may know, right here in South Ajax. Right here in South Ajax, they have worked for 20 plus years and cannot find the money to pay their tax bill, forced to retire or move. My neighbor, who is in her early 50s, lost her husband. She has 2 children and had to take on a part-time job at Amazon just to afford paying her property tax and not losing her home. Now she's laid off from Amazon. We had a family with 5 kids here in South Ajax that lost their father. A year later, lost their mother due to cancer and was taken care of by a grandmother. The struggle they had to continue paying property taxes was extremely difficult. The only financial support coming from the churches. Having spoken to many people in Ajax, their situation right now, they are struggling in many difficult circumstances. These are the challenges faced by our residents here. Our seniors who have lived in their homes and paid property tax, Mr. Mayor, for 50 years, now cannot afford to pay their taxes because the only income they have is CPP and OAS, struggling to maintain their home upkeep. All they ask for is help to defer the property tax or to qualify for some sort of rebate or reduction. It's only fair and just as they paid their fair share for many, many decades. I understand we have to pay for the much needed services, but at some point we have to stop spending money that we don't have. Our budget as homeowners have been cut back to live here and to keep our family together. Our children cannot afford a home because it's not affordable. When someone migrates to Ajax after buying their first home with a family of 3 or 4 children, they get free education, free hospital care, free health care, free library service. They have access to fire, ambulance, and police, health and fitness center, an amazing waterfront that they all are benefiting by those who have paid taxes for decades, like our seniors, for infrastructure. Mr. Mayor, higher taxes reduce affordability and drive the rent up. Renters feel the tax hike and housing insecurity just as much as homeowners. Please hear and accept our struggle. We have the power and authority to help the people of Ajax. All of these cost of living is at a crisis. It's causing significant hardship across all families. Food prices has tripled and crippled most of us. Our utility bills, Lexicon, which you are on the board, our energy bill, Enbridge bill, our fuel prices, auto insurance, childcare, and the list goes on, has run so high we have to borrow money to afford to pay if we have to continue to live here. Our landlords are charging higher rent because property taxes are a core operating expense. We see builders selling homes in the millions, while tenants, fixed income renters, and seniors who stay there cannot afford a one-bedroom place. These all leads to homelessness and being displaced. I know you all have families and some extended families and understand. All we ask for is help until we can catch up to the burden that our politicians and leaders have put on us. As a people, we are asking for moderation in big spending, housing density control, and fixing our infrastructure. As we grow, we need clear transparency and accountability. We need clear transparency and accountability so that people can understand your position. Then we can move forward to live here, to work here, and to be happy here, to call Ajax an affordable place to raise my family and you, your family, Mr. Mayor and Council. My wish is to hopefully to see many generations to come call Ajax home. So you all may ask, where can we find some of these cost-saving initiatives? It's not an easy answer, but I'm out of time. Thank you all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I truly appreciate your many years of service, Mr. Mayor, and to the people of our town and to the region of Durham. Thank you.
Thank you. I do have a question, and Councillor Lee, I do see you, but I want to address a couple of things before I open it up. Thank you for coming today. Obviously, you're very passionate about this, and you were here at the Live with the Mayor event last Monday, and I believe read the same statement, and we addressed some of your questions, concerns there, so I'll do the same today. Most of the items, to be fair, that you mentioned are not items that fall under the jurisdiction or the mandate of the town of Ajax. Most of the things, like all of the social service aspects, homelessness, everything else, are the region of Durham, and we dealt with those at the budget last week at the region of Durham, Thursday, Friday. We spent about, 20 hours? It was a lot dealing with that budget, and that budget has now been passed. It's not approved yet. That will be approved on Wednesday, but that is where a lot of the things you talk about live. We need to focus on what we have here, and as I said last week, I absolutely empathize with the struggles that people are having today. We're all taxpayers in this room as well, some of us many times, and it's like, I get it, we get it. But the fact of the matter is we have fixed costs as well, and the town of Ajax, as I said in my opening remarks, experiences the same pressures as homeowners feel, only in a slightly different way. We're not affected by increase in groceries, which have gone up significantly more than the property tax bill, but we're impacted in other ways, like collective agreements with our employees and those types of things, where, you know, often we're starting at 2 to 3%. This budget, and here's my question, because we brought this budget in at 2.74%. That's 2.74% of 33%, because we only, of all the dollars we collect, we only keep a third, which is an impact on you and other residents of less than 1%, 0.9. First of all, are you aware that that is the actual number? And that equates to, and then we added to that a 2% infrastructure levy, because again, we need to pay for these other things, there's not enough money, which brought it up to 1.6. That's the impact on residents, which is well below inflation. I guess my question is, what else would you have us do? We have the same, we experience the same pressures as all homeowners, but again, we need to run the town. What other way, like, what is it that you're asking? You talked about deferral, you talked about credits in taxes.
Yeah, there's a lot to mention. You mentioned about debentures and raising additional funds. That is such a huge opportunity, especially with the returns today. So accelerating that debenture, looking at communicating with the residents. A lot of residents don't know what it takes. So I know we have our counselors, but sometimes we see them usually around certain times. But I think communication with the residents will give them a sense of understanding, a sense of accountability of what is being done at the town. Because when they see $40, $50 increase, that may be the town's part, but the region overall, they see that as any portion of it is affecting them. And as I mentioned, when you have a loss of a parent and they still have to pay the property tax, or our seniors are complaining because when they used to work, they had the money to pay that. And they're saying, well, we're having so many people, so many houses are being built in Ajax. Where are all these property tax going? And are we seeing they paying their fair share? I know you had mentioned that why would you allow a family to pay more? It's because they're benefiting from all of these things that you and I as taxpayers pay. For so many things they're benefiting for, and it's free. So again, there's a lot to list, but I don't want to take up a lot more time, but we can definitely do that, and I can always relate to my ward councillor, Councillor Bauer, to be able to discuss all of these things more in detail. And I would love to be part of that too.
As far as getting more information out to the public, that's why we hold things like the Live with the Mayor meeting last week. That's why we're having this meeting today. We're not required to have this meeting today. This is something that I insist on putting on because of accountability and transparency. We don't want residents to think we're hiding anything, and some people accuse us of holding meetings at times that aren't convenient for people. It doesn't matter what time we hold the meeting, whether it's 7 o'clock at night or 1 in the afternoon or 9 this morning today. Some it's not going to be good for. We do the best we can, but we also have to be cognizant of the staff that we have. Just one thing you mentioned about houses being built, we don't have any houses being built, really. We have the Medallion development over here and one up on Roslyn, but really, there's not a lot of construction right now, and that's part of the problem. We're having, where we used to be able to have enough money in our capital reserves to buy vehicles and things up front, we're now having to debenture and take on debt to do that. And this is part of what I'm talking about. We have the same pressures as residents do. It's not a, I just want you to understand, it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's
So
not an easy situation.
I just want to reassure you, I've done the best here to kind of try and find that balance. The impact on the average home is $8.85 a month from this budget. That's what the increase is on the average homeowner. It's unfortunately unavoidable. Other than raising taxes at the opening, the director or the treasurer said, and this has been discussed online a little bit and disagreed with by the previous delegate, that we either have to increase taxes or decrease services. That's why I say this is a balance. We haven't decreased services. We've maintained services with only a very small marginal increase. So I'll leave it there. Councillor Lee has a question. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. To the delegate, you had mentioned the phrase deferring taxes. What does that look like to you then?
I think Burlington and other municipalities, sometimes they have a deferral program. Not sure if you're familiar with that for the seniors or something to that effect, but maybe.
It's a full deferral of all their taxes?
I'm not sure on the whole what encompasses, but there is some programs available. I believe Pickering has another program also.
I think Pickering is for, you have to hit a maximum threshold of your income, correct? Like, it's not for everybody.
Yes.
And then you also mentioned, new home buyers are struggling to get into the housing market. I caution the idea that we can defer taxes, but at the same time make things more affordable for the newer generation. Because I would argue by deferring taxes, you are now making it more unaffordable for future house buyers to buy a house, right? Like we have to make up a gap somewhere ultimately, right? You also mentioned that there's a lot of families, impoverished families, families who are struggling. Those families, if I'm not mistaken, and we have our chief librarian there, those families are the ones who take advantage of our services the most, right? They're the ones who take advantage of our community centers, our libraries, our town programming, which is funded through this. So I also argue that should we drastically defer or reduce taxes, then these very programs that these families depend on would no longer be available or be affordable. So it's just, we're forever trying to measure and balance the needs of the many, and I understand your point of view, specifically from seniors, I do understand that, but as one of the younger councillors here, I also have to look out for the newer constituents who are coming into the housing market for the first time, new families, et cetera. And those are the families that absolutely depend on us funding swimming lessons, camp programs, as well as library services. Just want to make that point, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Seeing nothing further, thank you for your delegation.
Thank you.
I want to go back. I've been thinking about this since our first delegate left, made a statement of a number of facts, some of which simply are not true. And I want to just clarify a few of those comments. I didn't have a chance to ask the questions, so just for the public watching, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding based on that delegation. So I'm going to, I would prefer the delegate to be here so they can't say after I said so, but it is what it is. They left. So just the notion that Roslyn Road is funded by debt and that we're not being transparent about it. Roslyn Road is funded by DCs, development charges. This is money that we collect through development. So when a house is built, a portion of that cost goes into a DC, a development charge reserve fund. We accumulate those monies and we use those monies to build roads, to build community centers, to build things that we need for expansion to accommodate the new residents in HX. So a lot of the money for Roslyn and Harwood is DC, from our DC reserve. Now, one of the things that I talked about at Live with the Mayor is the fact that changes in Bill 17 and Bill 5 have made it that we're no longer collecting development charges until occupancy, where in the past we used to collect DCs when they pulled the permit in the beginning. This is giving some relief to developers to not have to pay that large, in some cases, like some of the bigger buildings in the MTSCA, $50 to $70 million in development charges up front. This doesn't deplete their capital to build the project, it's paid at the end. What that means for us, though, is we're really not going to collect any DCs for the next 5 years. And I talked about that pretty clearly last week at the Live with the Mayor event. But DC debt, we do have to borrow to get these projects done now that we're not receiving the funds, but DC debt is dealt with differently than regular debt. And it does not increase the operating budget. We will collect this money later. So we upfront the money, but later on, when the houses are built and we collect those DCs at that point on occupancy, we're paying ourselves back the loan. Okay? So what was said about, I have a quote here, debt today becomes operating cost tomorrow, is just factually not true when you're talking about DC debt. Normal debt, yes. But development charge debt, no. And I just wanted to make that very important clarification for members of the public, because I found that statement very deceiving and I wanted to address it and I didn't have the opportunity to address it. So I hope I've clarified. Don't believe everything you read online later on this afternoon, because that is the facts. Does any other member of the public wish to come forward and speak on the budget process today? Asking second time. Asking third and final time in the gallery. To the clerk, is there anybody online that wished to ask any questions today? No? Okay. That will now conclude our, let me go find this. Oh, Councillor Crawford.
Thank you. I want to also ask a question around the previous delegation. He had said that we understate the interest for our investments. Then, so can you explain to me the number you state? Like, how is that number decided for the interest on our investments?
Through the mayor to Councillor Crawford. So the interest and the investment income that is included in our operating budget is really the number that we need to make sure we can earn an investment income every year to allocate to that operating budget. Strategically, we do not include the equity investment in our operating budget because that investment income is to be allocated to the reserves. So the reserves that are invested are long-term reserves, it's long-term money, and the distributions that we earn are not cash. They are reinvested and cannot be used to offset the tax rate. So typically that's why we let them flow through. They have to flow through the operating budget. And then they're just contributed at year end.
So it's not considered to be, so what you're saying is you take the interest, you reinvest it in the asset, whatever it was that we were investing in, you don't take the interest and put it into reserves as suggested?
We do take the investment income and we do allocate them to reserves. It's
Okay.
just not budgeted through the operating budget.
So again, I think it was stated somewhere, I read somewhere, that it was a $5 million estimate that we would receive in interest. Can you explain why that number and not higher?
As we try to be conservative in our
Right.
estimates, so we
Right.
don't want to overestimate the amount of revenues that is going to come in on an ongoing basis. At year end, we do true up those numbers, and we have tried to forecast some of those revenues in a very conservative manner to provide some sense of the revenue coming to the town that will be contributed to reserves. But we don't know what that distribution will be at year end.
I was just going to
Okay.
add, Councillor Crawford, that the interest is one thing that we can, because we know what the interest rate is for the most part, unless it's a variable. So that is something that we can project with some form of accuracy. But as far as what Julie just said, distributions don't happen till the end of the year. And there's no way that we can tell at budget time now, December now, what next year's markets and everything else are going to be and what those distributions are going to be. So to be including those, and I didn't address this after the delegation, I didn't want to get into it, but by including those would be irresponsible, honestly, because if we don't get those distributions and we don't get those returns, we've now got a hole. Now, we're talking capital, but still, now we've got a hole to fill because we budgeted for something that we don't have.
So even at a
That's-
midpoint,
that's-
you couldn't bump it up to a midpoint
Well, like even when we get.
because you don't know for sure.
Yeah, like what's the report called that we get that shows what the surplus deficit is, where we are on target? We usually get about September,
The operating budget forecast.
the operating budget forecast. Even in September, we still don't actually, we have an idea, but we still don't know actually what our surplus is going to be, if any. Even in, we don't usually know that till what, March, April, the following year? Till all accounts are closed?
That's correct.
So to try and budget with these unknowns, I think creates, and this is why one of our municipalities, our neighbors, does a multi-year budget. And I don't know how the heck that works, because it's hard enough trying to figure out and plan for next year. And I think we do a pretty good job, because we end up within about 1%, which is pretty solid budgeting as far as I'm concerned, versus, like, I would hate to try and, use a crystal ball for 2 or 3 years out. I think that would be really, really difficult.
Okay, no, I just, because it was mentioned and because it was written to us, I just wanted to address why we do what we do and why we can't do what's being asked. That's all.
Yep. And we also, I ask for this regularly. I don't know if we post this, but the investment fund report or the investment report, do we do that on a regular basis, or is that just part of the operating forecast?
To the mayor, so we do an annual investment report, usually in the April or May timeframe. Obviously, we do track investments throughout the year, but the final report to council comes in the spring.
Okay. So that information is out there. It's just maybe doesn't form part of the budget. Maybe we can do a better job at getting that out there better. Further? No? Councilor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. And just to add on to the comments and questions of Regional Councillor Crawford, in my other job, I work with a lot of financial planners and advisors and investment companies in an administrative role. And a phrase that is used many times, often, all the time we hear it, is past performance is not indicative of future results. So we cannot say just because we made this much last year, we're going to make this much this year. That is poor planning. So I think it is a very responsible task to be conservative and to only predict pretty much what we know. And I just needed to get that off my chest. Thank you.
Okay, while we are in the discussion and opportunity for amendments portion of the budget, we're having some discussion. If there's any amendments? Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair, and I believe the clerk has the language provided, just that the levy be reduced to 1%. The 2% interest rate levy be reduced to 1%. I believe I don't need a seconder, or I do need a seconder for amendments?
You do need a seconder, this is council.
So I believe that Councillor Bauer is going to second this. And then, did you want to speak on, is this the opportunity to speak on this now?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I think, first things first, I wanted to commend the mayor for the budget that was presented in this year. This was probably the leanest budget I had seen in these 7 years I'd been on council. He obviously took into consideration the extenuating affordability factors that are affecting us all. And I just wanted to say right off the bat, council appreciates it. The reason for this amendment is that I just think we, as this council, has done a fantastic job filling the infrastructure gap. And the 1 million against the infrastructure gap would not put us in a perilous position. However, the 1% to the taxpayer will, as you know, as the delegate was saying, would have a tremendous impact. Amongst tariffs, inflation, uncertainty with everything, I think now more than ever, it's important to acknowledge that we're in an affordability crisis. In fact, if you Google the phrase affordability crisis, the first 300 mentions are only within the past 3 weeks. So it's something we're hearing over and over and over. And I think this council would be responsible for 1 year to put a hold on the levy at 1%. You know, we're still funding it. They'll still get $1 million more than it had previously. And, you know, and then next term, should the council of the future decide to bring back the levy, completely understand, as that's, you know, there still is a hole to fill. But I think considering the circumstances that the population's feeling right now, it is important for us to acknowledge that and respond in kind. So I would appreciate council support on this. Thank you, Chair.
Any other comments? Oh, Councillor Henry? Well, who's it? Sorry, I'll go to Councillor Bauer. I'll run the meeting. I'll go to Councillor Bauer next as a seconder, and then Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you, Regional Councillor Lee, for putting this forward. I'm very happy to second it. I think it is a very reasonable compromise for doing what is best for the town to bring in the revenue, but also that we need to fund very important infrastructure projects. And also that balance from the residents that we have heard many times. And I'm a resident too, single mom, grandmother, so I understand those pressures too. So I think this is a reasonable and responsible compromise that I am very happy to support. Thank you.
On the amendment, Councillor Henry.
Thank you. Yes, on the amendment. So I have a question, and we discussed this at the Ward 1, Ward 2 pre-budget meeting with the residents. And I need to ask this of the finance department to kind of understand this better. Looking at this amendment, I want to know how this will affect the future of the tax base when we're talking about DCs that are deferred because the provincial government are deferring them. We're still going to get them, but you get them at the end. And in relationship to other, I think it's called CIPs that we have previously in place, that previous council had approved with regards to development for buildings at Pat Belly Square, because I know that buildings are being built, and what that looks like if we do this. How does that affect it, and does it? I need to understand that.
I don't believe it does, but to the treasurer?
Through the mayor to Councillor Henry, the reduction in infrastructure levy has no bearing on any CIP obligations that we would be committed to pay back or development charges. This is an increase to tax-funded reserves that fund our town capital levies.
So no implication, no crossover, nothing like that?
Not on the items you brought forward, no.
Okay, thank you.
What is 1 million, or sorry, what is 1% of our budget? This Mepham this year, is it around $1 million?
Yes, to Mayor Collier, yes, it's $1,020,000.
Okay, so basically all this is doing is reducing the operating transfer to the capital budget by $1,020,000 or whatever that 1% of the budget is. Councillor Crawford?
Thank you. So going back on the investment interest, obviously we have been fortunate enough to do very well in the investment portfolio. The interest is quite high. So can that money, would that money be then used to offset this reduction?
Through the chair to Councillor Crawford, yes. The money would not be used, I would say, as an offset, but it is contributed to capital reserves and does provide additional funding for future capital programs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, not saying anything further. I'm going to wade in on this. I'm not going to, I understand what the mover and seconder are trying to do, respectfully, I get it. However, I don't think this is a way to do it. If this was a motion to take something out of the budget, absolutely I could support it, depending on what that was. But in all likelihood, I would support that in a way to reduce this. Like, and I'll use, just because I know what the numbers are and I looked it up last week, flag raising. Flag raising is 105 hours of staff time a year and a cost of $4,500. I don't know how much, there is some community benefit, I'm not going to stipulate or, debate that, but it's a cost. And does the cost warrant the result? I don't know, that's up to this council. If something like that came forward to reduce the budget, I'd support it. But in this case, we are reducing the budget indirectly, but we are reducing, the funding that we would have for capital projects going forward forever, not just what's being reduced, the $1,020,000, but also the growth on that money going forward. 4 years ago, this council made the very difficult decision, and I spoke about it in my opening comments, to do this 2% infrastructure levy after the province made us do an asset, what's it called? The asset management plan and an asset funding strategy. And through the treasurer's report this morning, we can see that we're falling 50 million below what is needed to maintain our assets. I talked about the loss of, well, not the loss of dividends and interest, the reinvestment of that, but loss to us, as well as reduction in slots, as well as other pressures, DCs, and we've made up about, I think the number is 27 of 30 million of that lost, I don't know, it doesn't matter, but we made up a good portion of it. But to stop now, honestly, I think this is the last year. I won't speak to what next year's council is gonna be doing. I'm not gonna be there. But they can make that decision at the time. But if anybody thinks next year is gonna be easier than this year, I'm gonna probably disagree with them. I think kicking this can down the road, first of all, the numbers are pretty minimal. It reduces the budget impact by 1.99, $1.99 a month. So it takes it from 885 to 686 a month impact on the average taxpayer. Honestly, it's less than a cup of coffee. I don't really think that is going to really have any impact on the average resident in their affordability. However, I think it will have a significant impact to this council and the capital needs that we have going forward. So, I mean, for those reasons, I won't support it. I do have another motion coming that's going to put $2.5 million, hopefully if it passes, back into our reserves from another project. But that won't have a budget impact. I get it, Councilor Lee. I have no interest in trying to match what other municipalities are doing. I understand this might bring us down to 3.8 or whatever, what Whitby has or what others have done. Optically, and not politically, but optically, that doesn't affect my decision making. We've brought in a 2.74% increase, which is 1.61, which is 0.9. That's what our budget increase is, and then we're adding a 2% levy, potentially a 1%, but a 2% levy. I'm proud to say that Ajax has what I think is the lowest increase in the region at 2.74%, because the asset levy is separate. I know semantics, we're going to have these comments, but there's only one taxpayer, all the rest. But honestly, this is investing in our future. And I think to change that at this point after the commitment we've made and the last 3 years of hard work would be a mistake. So I won't support it. I'll leave it there. Councillor Henry?
Thank you, Mayor. I have a follow-up question to you. So let's go back to the numbers. So we're looking at $1 million taken out. What is the interest of that we would normally make? Do we know?
Well, it depends. We have, if it's short-term, it will be in a high-interest savings or GIC. If it's long-term, it will be in our equity investment portfolio. So it depends. Again, do we know if this, I guess the FSP says where the operating funds go through the capital surpluses. So I guess depending on which one it is, whether it's short-term or long-term would determine, but I would say at least 5% on a savings, right?
Through the chair, yes. On average, it would be approximately 5%. It all depends on where the money actually ends up going once we tally up the total reserves at the end of the year and apply the investment policy on the balances.
So we're looking at $50,000 in, roughly, I'm not holding anyone to this number, rough estimate, $50,000
Minimum in the first year.
minimum
Yeah.
in the first year that we could lose. So, and what was the number you said, Mr. Mayor, that this would equal to per resident per month? Was it $1.95 a month?
I asked the treasurer, I sent an email last night, you had said it, you can speak to this, please.
Yes, through the chair. So for a 1% tax decrease, that would be $21.68. The 1.1 was a larger amount, but the $21.68 or $1.81 per month.
$1.81 per month, $21.68 per year,
Correct.
per resident.
For an average
No,
household.
per household.
Oh, per household, sorry. Oh, yeah, what am I saying? Sorry, per household, yes. So, and we have how many households in Ajax? 30,000.
Approximately 36,000.
36,000, okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay, seeing nothing further on the amendment, I guess we will open the vote. And that carries. Are there any other amendments to come forward? Well, I have one. And this is something that was told to me a month or so ago, and apparently the change was not made in the budget document, so we'll just do it by amendment today. And it's to do with the Pickering Village redevelopment project 2400471. And to the clerk, do you have this motion? Okay. That the project 2400471 be reduced from $3 million to $500,000 in 2026, And I guess bullet 2 will be that the 2.5 million allocation be reserved to the half fund reserve, be returned to the half fund reserve? Because that was a half-funded project. Second by Councillor Lee. This doesn't have a budget impact. This is just clerical at this point. It's just, we've reduced the scope of the budget and reduced the cost of the budget item, and we're just putting the money back because I guess this one change wasn't done yet. I'm not even going to speak to it. Questions? I'm not speaking to it. We're just putting money back. The project is still going ahead. It's just 1/6 of the price, which is good. Okay, let's open the vote. And that carries. Are there any other amendments to the budget by members of council? Councillor Henry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, so I believe the clerks have something to put up on the screen for me with regards to stop sign at Seeger and Williamson. So the way that this is worded is that it be added to the operated budget, but I would also ask if it could not be absorbed into the budget. So we know that the no parking and the no stopping signs went through and they were, I believe, absorbed into the budget. And I'm asking the same thing here for Seeger and Williamson. We know that this area had a warrant for a PXO. I mentioned that prior when I brought the motion forward. And the cost was a lot. It was $225,000. My compromise is a non-warranted stop sign in place of a warranted PXO. PXO, it's a lit crosswalk. My apologies, just to give more information. So it's a crosswalk that you can go to, you can push a button, and it flashes, and it allows for somebody to alert drivers that they are crossing the street, and for drivers to stop. We know that this intersection has had 2 children that were hit at this area, Seeger and Williamson, school-age elementary school children. We've had multiple parents reach out through the school and to myself personally that live in the north subdivision of Williamson that are asking for safer intersection there so that their children can walk to school, because right now they're driving them to school, and that's creating
Sorry, Councillor
further.
Henry, do you have a seconder?
I do. Councillor
Okay,
Crawford.
Second by Councillor Crawford.
I'm
Please
so
go ahead.
sorry. So we know that we need something in this area, and something has been warranted. I'm proposing a cheaper, non-warranted solution at a reduction of $220,000 roughly. And I'm hoping you'll support that. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Henry on the amendment? Sorry, Councillor Lee on the amendment.
Thank you, Chair. I guess this would go to operations. Do you have a list of intersections that operations is monitoring that require stop signs or road calming of any sorts? Is there like a list?
Through the chair to Regional Councillor Lee, we don't have a specific list. Generally for stop signs, street signs, we do have an operating budget line item in the range of $30,000, and that's to deal with all in-year sort of sign requests that were requested to provide. We do work with our transportation group in planning and development, who do a lot of the background work with respect to traffic counts and warrants, and a lot of the information for our sign installation comes through that process. So sort of year in and year out.
So this might actually go to Director Romanowski then ultimately, right? Because I guess my broader question is there a list of severity of which intersections we feel require stop signs immediately versus not as part, like scale 1 to 10, 1 being dire, 10 being it can wait or reverse it? Do we have a list of roads that require that? And are they graded?
typically, we would have a warrant process, and there'd be counts that would be administered through Mr. Romanowski's department. Jeff can speak to it more directly, but it's that process that we follow that would then trigger the need or requirements for additional signage, but I'm not sure if there's anything
So
to add.
Director Romanowski, then how many warranted intersections are there right now? So we've done the studies, we've done the data analysis, and how many, like, just, I don't need the specific intersections, but how many would we say, even ballpark, are warranted currently?
I wouldn't have that exact number off the top of my head. I definitely can get that to you. We do our analysis, warrant analysis on all roads, intersections, et cetera, that are on our list, or things that come through council or the residents to do those analysis. This is not a warranted stop sign at this location. So, but we would review that. We can provide that information to council. We do provide updates in the springtime as it relates to these types of requests. And we would, just like in any other year in 2026, be bringing that forward for council's review and consideration.
So just to comment, Chair, listen, it's in Ward 2, so I obviously benefit from it, but my broader concern is that this could lead to other amendments of people wanting to add unwarranted stop signs in intersections that they feel warrant them, that isn't data supported, or more to the point, this may push more priority projects down the list. And I guess my broader point ultimately is that, listen, like we just reduced the budget by $1 million through the levy. I'm not sure what it says for us to add to the budget, even if it's a small amount like 5,000. I mean, it's Ward 2, so I guess I'll support, but yeah, okay, that's it. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Crawford? Thank you. Oops, sorry, I pressed, there you go.
Thank you. So my issue is it may not be warranted for a stop sign. It is warranted for a crosswalk that I believe is the same one that's on Harwood, which I would argue is not actually a safe crosswalk to begin with. I realize that's what we have. I realize that it's the safety, where the road, the traffic, Ontario traffic, whatever, says that this is a warranted device. So, but I don't actually see that as being safe. So if it is warranted for a crosswalk at $250,000, I think that it's a compromise to have a stop sign for $5,000, which I think is probably as equally safe as the crosswalk, in my opinion, when I've seen it on Harwood. And, you know, to Councillor Sterling, or to Regional Councillor Lee's point, I think there's probably hundreds of unwarranted stop signs in the town of Ajax. The public believes that stop signs are a measure to slow traffic down, although traffic department will never use it as a road calming device. You know, I think at this point for $5,000, nobody wants to add money to the budget. I don't think that this is a huge percentage, and I do believe that it will speak to residents along Williamson that believe that section is not safe.
Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. So I do remember when this came up at a previous meeting, and that we have process, we have procedure, and to Regional Councillor Lee's point, if it's not warranted, what does that, you know, how does that stop other requests? For example, I said it at that meeting, and I'm going to say it now. If we are going to do this, then I would like to include a stop sign at Audley and Lenny, and a stop sign at Shoal Point and Ashbury. At that time, at the meeting, I said I didn't think that was very responsible or reasonable, I think, because we're just throwing these things out from what we've heard. And I don't know. I feel like if this request is coming forward today for Ward 2, then I want Ward 3 and Ward 1 to throw in some stop signs too. Otherwise, I can't support it. Thank you.
And thank you for touching on exactly why we don't do this. Councillor Dives.
Again, just to repeat what's been said, I guess, there is a process in place, and when we do have some concerns, we forward it to the planning department and the traffic department. And is that something we can still do with this issue, to have this looked at through your planning department, Mr. Romanowski?
Through the chair, Councillor Dies, yes, we would continue to process as we always do when we get requests.
We receive many of these concerns of safety on streets, particularly around schools, and Councillor Bauer and myself were at a neighborhood school recently, and I have to say, you know, driving your children to school is not the answer because you're all speeding, and it creates a huge, huge problem. Nobody is adhering to the speeding laws on our local streets, but it was unbelievable, the traffic, the number of cars that came in to this school and how fast they were going. So there's a lot of issues here where, you know, it's not a bad thing to have your children walk to school, and we also have walking school buses, and I think that's where we need to go in promoting walking to school more and more. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Henry, you've already spoken to this. I'll see you back. I'll come back to you after everybody else has spoken on this matter. Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Henry asked the question or made the statement about absorbing it into the budget, but I didn't hear anybody. Is that a thing?
It doesn't get absorbed into the budget.
So it would definitely be over and above.
This is an addition to the budget and a tax increase, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I'm going to speak to it, then I'll go back to Councillor Henry as the mover because you're back in the speaker box. I'm not going to support this or any motions that come forward to increase this budget. Staff and I have spent, I don't know, I don't even want to count the hours going through this to bring this to council. I think this, as I've said, is a balance. Some of my colleagues have spoken about the process. This particular intersection has been looked at several times. We have a process, we have warrants, as Councillor Lee said, to make things fair and to properly evaluate where these things are supposed to go through the town. We have a finite amount of money. I was here, Councillor Dies, you were here from the 2003 to 2010 years where we put in a lot of politically motivated, I'll say, stop signs. People complained, we put in a stop sign, it was $200 a shot, it was cheap, it was a quick fix, but they serve zero purpose. People don't pay attention to them if they're in unwarranted areas, they don't follow them. Then I get the calls saying, can we get police out to enforce them? Because they don't work. They're not a traffic calming method, they don't work. It's been proven time and time again. But at the same time, we developed a warrant system, because there are some places where always stops are required, and the warrant system goes out, they do the traffic counts, they do the pedestrian counts, they do everything. They look at, in this particular case, this is on a hill, this is on a bend, they look at line of sight, they look at everything. And then they use this warrant system and the score to evaluate it against all the other hundreds of requests we have for traffic calming across the town, because this area is not unique. Every street in Ajax has traffic issues, everyone. Not unique at all. No kid is more important than any other person's kid. They're all important. We need a fair and equal way to measure and allocate our resources to the right locations. This area has been looked at countless times, not countless, several times, and it just doesn't meet the warrants. The PXO crosswalk, it's not warranted. It was an alternate for this area. But in preparing the budget and looking at a $250,000 expenditure for a crosswalk on a street that's not warranted for a stop sign, no, it did not make the cut. I removed it from the budget. We're not going to get, in my opinion, $250,000 worth of benefit from this, we could do a lot more with that money in another area. I know some people will disagree, that's fine. You know, God forbid anybody ever get hit there, and yeah, that's not good, but, I mean, well, it's not good, but, I mean, you know what I'm saying? That would apply to everywhere. You know, so it is what it is at this point. I mean, the councillor, respectfully, you've been told several times that stop signs don't go here. You're asking us to do something that quite honestly goes against the policies and procedures of the town of Ajax that you're well aware of, and I just won't support it. Councillor Henry, you want to speak to it again?
I do, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'd like to ask the Director of Planning, there was a warrant done for this area that warranted a PXO, correct? I want to make some clarifications here.
Yes, the PXO was a warranted crossing element here at Sager and Williamson.
So I'm not asking for something, I just want to be clear, I didn't wake up one morning and go, I want a stop sign here. 8 months of work, working with school board, working with parents, went through the proper procedure, went through the proper departments, came out as a warranted PXO. It is warranted here. What I am suggesting is a compromise that saves money of a non-warranted stop sign. When we talk about stop signs and about others that want them in different areas, I want to be very clear that I did go through the process, that I did go through months and months of consultation and went through the proper department and waited for the warrant that does say a PXO is warranted here. So to take that out and to say nothing should be done here, I don't think that's the right thing to do, because we have identified that there is a safety concern. And for $5,000 either way, it could save somebody's life. So if somebody's saying to me, Counselor, we have a process, I'm saying I followed the process. I'm trying to save you money in the budget by going for $5,000 versus $225,000, which was warranted and suggested. I didn't supersede anybody. I didn't push ahead of anybody. I'm not asking for something that hasn't gone through the proper process. If you want me to ask for what's gone through the proper process, then my amendment should be to put back in the $225,000 lit crosswalk, which I don't think is the responsible thing to do when we're in a budget crisis. I think the responsible thing to do is to ask for safety for that area in a very lower amount. And when we talk about putting in stop signs, I will remind this council that through my advocacy for the stop signs that came forward with Councillor Morin and mine this year, all the unintentional consequences from allowing folks to park on aprons of curved areas, my advocacy of 6 to 8 months of that work is what led to all the other stop signs that were put in the town in one big bunch. So I do go through the proper process, I do the work properly, but I have to advocate for this area. It is very important that children can cross the street safely there. So if I'm going to be denied $5,000 for a stop sign, then let's go by what the warrant said in the PXO for $225,000. But put something there. Let's not ignore this area. I'm not jumping ahead of anybody. I'm not saying I need this more than anybody else. What I'm saying is I've done the work. It justifies it. Put something there before somebody gets hurt, before somebody's killed. Thank you.
Just to be clear, are you bringing another motion if this motion fails to add in the PXO? Yes. Okay. Councillor Lee?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, thank you for letting me back in. To the Director of Planning, hypothetically, if this amendment passes and other stop signs, is it still warranted for a PXO?
I believe I already answered that question. PXO is warranted at this intersection.
Right. So we, in theory, future councils would then put a PXO on top of these stop signs. Oh, he took it out. Okay, right. Got it, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. So PXOs, there's this hope that they will reduce accidents. There's a PXO on Harwood by this Spice Land, that's a PXO, correct?
One on Ritchie, too.
Right, I just want to confirm, has that removed all accidents from that area? Or you would have statistics if there's been any accidents on a PXO?
Without having the collision,
Is Mr. DeVal here? Because we had noticed on Friday that this amendment was coming. Is he here to answer these questions? Because he'll have those
he's not
stats.
physically here, I'm communicating with
Okay.
him. I don't have the collision data for that. It has improved the functionality of that intersection at Haskell and Harwood. It will be a signalized intersection through the
Right, through the
widening of
widening of
Harwood
Harwood, right.
Avenue, and that PXO will no longer be there. It'll be a full automated crosswalk system with signals, et cetera, which was communicated at the time of that project going forward and being put in.
Okay, thank you. So based on what, Councilor Bowers signaled, and I completely respect her right to add stop signs as we are now, I'm now more reticent to not support this because, again, the purpose of this budget should not be to continually, this budget specifically, to add to the budget. Again, we just voted, anyways. Thank you, Chair.
Well, I was just going to make that clarification after Councillor Henry's comments. The PXO would be a capital budget item, which would not impact the tax base, where this is an operating budget item that will increase the property taxes. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. I won't support, I don't know, that by $5,000.
Through the chair, it will increase the budget ask of 0.01%.
Anything further on the amendment? Stop sign. Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. So going back to my previous statement, I would like to ask for a friendly or to amend this amendment to include unwarranted stop signs at Audley and Lenny and Shoal Point and
Folks,
Ashbury.
let's not go down this rabbit hole, okay? I
If
know
we're-
the point you're trying to make, Councillor Power. I don't expect this to pass, and even if it passes, I'm going to veto it. I'll tell you that right now. So let's not go down this rabbit hole and start doing these type of amendments.
Well,
If you insist, that's absolutely your right, but I mean, I understand the point you're trying to make.
okay, fair enough.
Anything further on this matter before we vote? Okay, please open the vote. Okay, that does not carry. Councillor Henry, did you have another amendment?
Yes, I'm going to bring forth the PXO to put it back into the
So
budget.
you would like to add $250,000 to the budget for a PXO crosswalk to be located at
$225,000 to the capital budget, yes, because it was warranted. And I
Okay.
proposed an alternative that did not go in. This is warranted.
Okay, so you want to add $225,000 to the capital budget at Williamson and Seeger.
Which doesn't affect the taxpayer,
No,
and I don't want to. I don't.
Well, it does, because there will be operating costs to go along with this for every year going forward. But anyway,
I don't want to put it in, no,
Okay.
but I need a solution there for the safety of the residents.
do you have a seconder?
I don't know, do I? Yeah.
Okay, second by Councillor Crawford. On the amendment. Not seeing anyone who wanted to speak to the amendment. I'm not going to support it, but please go ahead and, oh, Councillor Dice?
Sorry, can this not be referred back to planning to plan for it in the next budget? Or to have a look and see where it
No, not in
stands
this
in the
case.
list?
This is an actual amendment. This is an order to bring to this budget process.
Okay.
Yeah, it was in the budget. I took it out. So it is appropriate to, I'm going to allow the amendment. I'm just not going to support the amendment. Anything further? Okay, please open the vote. Okay, that fails. Any other amendments to the budget, please, by members of council? Please, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. I just had a question. I know that you mentioned the number of projects that were removed from the capital budget. I had a question for, I think, Director Meredith. When we look at the projects that were removed or pushed out, is there anything that you can see that runs the risk of coming back as an unbudgeted item due to safety or disrepair?
Director Meredith?
Through the mayor to Councillor Bauer, with respect to the projects that have been sort of deferred or pushed out until 2027, obviously they were prioritized from an asset management perspective. So there would have been certain condition ratings that we would have identified the need or the recommendation to remove. We would never let an asset get to the point that it would pose a health and safety risk or an issue from a public perspective. So whether it's items that have been pushed out or whether it's any other asset within the town, if there's a need for it to be replaced on an emergency basis, we have a process to follow, which we do every year. So if there is a need, whether it's been pushed out or not, or whether it's something that's not even identified in the budget, if it needs to be replaced, we have an emergency capital budget process that we would follow.
Okay, all right, thank you. Good to hear, thank you. And then I did have a question regarding, Mayor Collier, you made a comment about kicking the can forward earlier. So I had noticed in reviewing the budget that the total for 2026 is around 45 million and change. And then in 2027, it's upped, I think, to over 75 or 80, something like that. So my question, either to the mayor or to Director Mapham, is, are we pushing everything out and then making it, what would be the comment to, like, next year's proposed budget is $30 million extra from projects that were pushed. So I just wanted comment on that. And just looking at my notes, sorry. Okay, maybe that's it.
I'll try
Thank
and
you.
address that, and then maybe Director Mepham can correct anywhere I'm wrong and add. My intent through the last several years is to preserve capital.
Yes.
Okay, you'll recall we brought in our debenture strategy, and I'll use the fire truck because I always use fire truck because it's easy and everybody can relate to it. Fire truck, call it $1.5 million. We used to buy these vehicles cash. So we take $1.5 million out of our capital, buy it cash. It's a depreciating asset. It has a 15-year lifespan. That means that $1.5 million we take out, we're never going to have any growth on over that 15-year life of the vehicle. Plus, we're going to have operating expenses, but I won't get into that. That's separate for the vehicle. Versus what we do now, which is we would debenture that debt, which means instead of taking $1.5 million out of the budget, out of the capital reserves, out of our savings, we leave that money there and let it continue to grow for the 15 years on the hope, and so far successful, that the investments that we make on that money is more than the interest that we pay on that money.
Yes.
Because we have the luxury of being able to borrow at very low rates through different government debenture programs. So if we're paying 4% on the loan, but we're making 15% on the money that we still have in our reserves are still growing. That has been my intent all the way through, is to preserve capital and allow it to grow through our investment strategy while paying very low debt and very low carrying costs, hopefully, to preserve and plan for the future. In this year, we deferred, I think it was 34 items or something like that. It is my hope and plan that by keeping that money in the capital project, some of these things are going to have to be done still, like the ACC renovation will have to be done at some point. That's why the public open house is still going ahead. That's why we're doing the design. It will have to be done at some point. However, I'm hoping that we're not gonna take that $60 million hit to the capital this year, but the cost of any future cost increases won't be as much as the money we're gonna make on those investments. And the capital will continue to grow. That's kind of my theory that I'm operating behind when I made a lot of these decisions. Might be right, might not be right, so far been right. But there are also some items which were removed completely, like, I don't know, name one, like
The accessible boat launch at Rotary Park.
I don't know if that was deferred or removed.
Okay.
But, for instance, trying to prioritize items so we have the funds to do the big ticket items and the needed to have items, but at the same time, preserve and grow. That was my intent. That's sort of what I put into this. Will there be items that come back later at a higher price? Absolutely. Everything's gonna come back at a higher price. We know this.
Right.
I'm just playing the odds a little bit. Director Mepham, anything to add?
It's through the mayor to Councillor Bauer. Moving forward, I mean, every year the budget is an exercise where staff bring forward the needs and we assess all of the capital projects moving forward based on strategic priorities, risks of failure of certain assets, and we prioritize based on the available funding that we have. So what you see in the 2027 and 2028 budget, capital budget, will likely shift and be rebalanced at a future date.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you very much for that information. Thank you, Mayor Collier.
And just to add one more thing. And this came from, like, I know we have our Green Fleet strategy. We have a lot of sustainability options that are in the budget and those types of things. I pushed all of those out. We also, at the same time, had approximately 50 or 60 new items added to the capital budget this year. And I don't think I funded any of them in the first year. I might have been one or something, but to me, any new items that come in this year aren't gonna bump anything that's already in the budget. So I think I deferred all of those. But to the sustainability part, we had a federal government that said that all vehicles had to be electric by, what was it, 2026 or something? Like, it was close. It wasn't very far away. That was later rescinded. We've made decisions on vehicle charging stations and some other things. We had some grant money a few months ago, and we ended up canceling the project because we decided it just wasn't worth the investment right now. The uptake on electric vehicles isn't where we expected it to be. Some of our climate change options, I mean, did it make sense to, the ACC, I think it was adding 20-something million in sustainability options, or something. It was a big number. And I decided that's not the right time for that right now. We're not gonna be getting the bang for the buck right now. And I see Sarah at the back, and I don't know if this is fact or not, I'm kind of making this up, but let's say, for example, the air conditioners on the library. Say there was money in the budget to update those to more sustainable, environmental friendly ones right now. I would have made the decision to say no. When they fail, we'll put in more energy efficient, sustainable things at that point, but we're not gonna replace things today that are still working just to meet our greenhouse gas reduction targets. It's not an easy decision, but I felt it was the decision we had to make today. So some of those projects are pushed out, yes. And I think that may be part of what you're referring to. Okay. Councillor Crawford.
I'm just looking at the technology, I know it's in the capital, but we're looking at an investment of almost $1 million this year, and for almost $5 million in 2027. And by the end of 2035, almost 12 million. So at some point, is it caught up? We've made a huge investment in technology this term, and this is like significant money. So I'm curious as to, what's going on.
I'll get Deputy CEO Cooper to speak to the specifics, but yeah, this was one of the IT strategy was something we didn't have, something we developed. We did not want to become like some of our neighboring municipalities. Like I can think of Burlington and Hamilton right now that suffered ransomware and other losses.
No, none of us want that.
No.
I
So-
just need to understand this because we always
So
have to explain this.
We were not, I'm just saying, we were not addressing it, but we did make the investment to make sure that we did not become one of these statistics. To the specifics, and I ask the same question each year because sometimes there's a domino effect, like we made a $2 million investment last year, for instance, and I'm like, I don't want to put the 2 million in this year, but you kind of have to because we already started it last year. So I'm not sure if that's part of it, but Director Cooper, are you able to speak to the future IT capital projects? Or
Sure, I may ask Chris Walker to come forward because he'll probably speak to the long-range capital forecast a little bit more eloquently than I can.
thank you.
Hi, yes, through the chair to Councillor Crawford. So I guess I can answer generally, just the cost of all things technology is skyrocketing. So we have made significant investments through this council. So you're seeing things like our licensing. I've made note several times, we're moving, things can move into the cloud, monthly memberships, all those fees are going up. Anything we're looking at from a future capital perspective, for example, the big one in there you'd see would be our financial system, which our current one, I don't even know what year it was that we put it in, but we've been using it for several years, and it's actually going to be end of life, within the next 5 to 10 years. So we're planning for that change now, and as you could imagine, it's going to be not cheap. It's going to be an expensive situation. So in terms of things like our budget for the operating as well, we just implemented Workday, our HR system, and we're seeing the license costs for those things now, Microsoft across the board. So I'm rambling a bit, but things are just very expensive from the IT perspective. And I assure you, we're only putting things forward that we see that we absolutely need. And you're seeing that in the budget this year as well.
So can I ask, with this investment, does that also increase your operating needs? Are we going to be looking at significant hiring once these capital investments are done?
No, so I would say no. I think in terms of our body count from the IT perspective, as you know, has gone up, and I'm not anticipating anything major over the next several years. I think we're in a good spot from that place. Myself and Director Cooper have talked about that before. So no, to answer your question from that perspective, if anything, what we're working on now, which we've actually shared quite a bit, is how these are helping staff now, making us more efficient, almost realizing the fact that we won't need more staff because of what we're using is making us better, more efficient from the IT perspective and staff across the organization as well.
Okay, thank you. Can I ask another question?
Yeah, I just want to point out one thing to you that I neglected to mention, which in putting this budget together, I only looked at 2026 numbers really. So I did not spend a lot of time on 27, 28 future capital projects. That's whoever my successor's job will be later on. So
I spent a lot of time looking at those.
I focused on the 2026. Go ahead.
Mike, I did want to applaud staff, as there's a number of pages in efficiencies that were found this year. And I do appreciate the fact that our staff went through, I'm assuming that was the lean process? Is that how you came up with the efficiencies? Or how were those efficiencies found?
Thank you.
CEO Cooper.
So senior management assembled that list from a number of different sources, but the main drivers were major technology projects, and we do diligently track all of the efficiencies that are gained from those investments now, as well as lean initiatives that were documented by Director McClarty and her team.
So again, we have a huge team that was trained in lean. How much of lean was put towards these efficiencies?
I'd say it's about half and half. I think the chart in some cases details whether they arose from a lean initiative versus a technology initiative, but in some cases there's some overlap. I think as we have more and more staff trained in lean, we're starting to see those types of process improvements happen a lot more organically, and they just kind of become second nature as we look at process changes and improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Henry?
I wanted to actually, you know what? I think my question's been answered. Never mind.
Okay. Not seeing any other speakers in the list. We'll move on to council approval items subject to mayor pecuniary interest. There we go. Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Henry.
Sorry, I did want to ask, you mentioned before about vetoing something if it went through. Is it your intention to, because I know tomorrow would be the veto, I think it's 24-hour veto period. Is it your intention to veto the amendments that came through today, even the infrastructure levy? Is that your intention?
I had said, and I actually had in my speaking notes and did not read that portion, that I would be vetoing any increases to the budget. I do not plan on vetoing any of the amendments that we've passed today, no.
Okay, thank you.
Just to that, part of the process allows a certain number of days. I think it would delay this process by about another 30 days if we went by what the legislation was, but we've changed it and compressed the timeframe. So I think, what are the periods for me to veto or then for council to veto my veto?
So to you, Mr. Mayor, our shortened timelines are 1 day for your mayoral veto period, so that would expire at end of day tomorrow. And then if you were to veto something, council has an veto override period of 6 days, and that would expire on December 22nd. But if you did not veto something, the second period would not be needed.
Right. So to answer your question further, basically, I'm not going to at this point. So at the end of this meeting, the budget will be passed, deemed as passed. Okay, further, Councillor Lee?
Just to the Director of Finance then, what would our, assuming the region stays at 3% as they had passed at the budget, what would our blended rate be at the town of Ajax?
Through the mayor to Regional Councillor Lee, our blended rate would be 2.95%. So that would be 1.28% for the town and 1.67% for the region.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Good point. Councillor Henry, did you mean to press your button again? Yes. Go ahead.
So once this budget goes through, there's one thing I forgot to ask, and that's with regards to the parking master plan, which is project number 270006000601. And it looks like it's been pushed out to 2028.
It was moved out because staff were not able to accommodate it this year because it's contingent on another study that's being done. Director Romanowski, can you speak to that, please?
Yes, Your Worship. Through the mayor to Councillor Henry, yes, it was pushed out to 2028. We need to complete our ITMP first as the first step to our traffic analysis for the overall town needs.
But this is the second time that this has been pushed out since Regional Councillor Lee and I brought forth this motion in 2022. So can I ask why the second, like I understood the first time there was still work to be done, but now we're in the second time that it's being pushed out. And as you can understand, you know, we have residents, and particularly in the north, in the condensed area, that are looking for a parking solution, and we've been telling them it's coming in 2026 as per what was approved, and now we're at a stage where we have to say to them, no, it's now coming in 2028. Is there a lack of staff in your department that's causing this? What's the cause of this?
No, it has nothing to do with lack of staff. It's about the order of the projects that we need to carry out in order to carry out a proper parking master plan. If anything, the delay in time affords us more ability to analyze and scope that project to its specific needs to ensure that the cost for that project, when it does come online for budget consideration, council knows that dollar value associated with it. So
And it's been, well, but when it's been pushed into the budget, it went at 450,000 for 26, and it's still the estimate for 28. That won't be the cost in 28, correct?
I don't believe so. If anything, it may go up a little bit as costs of these projects will increase year over year as we put them off. But as I mentioned, ITMP is principally first and foremost necessary, especially going into our OP review, which we kicked off late last year into this year. So it's integral in carrying out early stages of our OP review.
Do you expect any further delays? Like, if we're having this discussion again in 28, do you foresee any further delays in this project?
At this point in time, through the chair, no.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any further comments? Not seeing any. Moving on to, and I'm going to turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Lee to do the next item, the capital operating, let's do the capital operating budget presentations first. Moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Lee, that the capital budget presentation and operating budget presentation be received for information. And I apologize, I should have done this a couple of agenda items ago. Questions on the presentation by the treasurer? No? Those in favor of receipt? That carries. Now I'm going to turn the chair over to Deputy Mayor Lee. I'll just pass this down to you.
Thank you. We're on item 4, capital budget and operating budget. 4.4, council approval of items subject to mayor pecuniary interests. 4.4.1, part-time aquatics, wages and benefits. Moved by Councillor Bauer, seconded by Councillor Tyler Morin. Any questions, comments, concerns? Councillor Henry, is that you? Yes. Mayor Collier, if you don't mind.
Thank you, Chair. My question is, haven't we increased this a few times before? Why does this one come back individually all the time, not with everything else?
Because it's a pecuniary interest. The mayor has a...
No. It's being separated. No, it's being separated, but why? Is it just being separated? Is this? Because we've seen this a few,
Through you, Mr. Chair. I can just provide a little bit of advice here. So we separate this item as the mayor has provided a pecuniary interest through the budget. So it was separated as the mayor cannot vote on this item. So it's not separated due to a separate increase. It's separated to allow for a separate vote.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing none, we'll call the vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Lee. That carries with my conflict. Before we do the conferring bylaw, I just want to close by once again thanking staff for all your time, thanking the public for your time coming both last week to the Live with the Mayor event and as well to today, putting your, having your interest and commitment to our budget process. Very important. I wish there was more people that would come and engage here rather than social media, because I think this is more beneficial. Just want to say we are listening. I feel that this budget is responsible. As I said before, I think it's a balance. I know there'll be some criticism, but very honestly, I think this is the best we can do without having serious impact on the important services. I do want to stress that some services might not be important to some people, but they are very, very important to some other people. You may not use them, but if you do need them, they are there. And that's our system. It's an everybody pays the same system for the services that we provide. Thank you to council as well for your time put into the review, for your suggestions. And as I said, I'm fine with this, and I'm not going to be making any decisions to change any of this after today. I will leave it there. Does anybody else want to comment on this? Hearing, seeing none, we'll just go on to the confirming bylaw. Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Dies, the bylaw number 98-2025, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its special meeting held on December 15, 2025, be approved. Please open the vote. you're voting on the confirming bylaw. There is no vote on the actual budget. The budget is deemed as received if I do not veto any items. I would be remiss also if I did not wish everybody, however you celebrate, whether it be the residents, town of Ajax, councilors, staff, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah this week, however you celebrate. I wish you all the best throughout the holiday season. And this concludes my last budget. 23, actually 46 if you include the region. Though adjournment moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Tyler Moran, that the December 15th, 2025 meeting of the town of Ajax be adjourned. Those in favor? And that carries. Thank you, everyone.